Now we can do a quick sound check.
Already did.
You already did?
Yep.
Gosh, awesome. Alrighty, it is 6:33 and we'll get started and call this October 24th regular business meeting of the Twin Cities German Immersion School to order. Good evening, directors, staff, and members of the public joining us online, because no one's here in person on this rainy night. We'll start by reflecting on our mission, vision, and values. The mission of the Twin Cities German Immersion School is the innovative education of the whole child through German immersion. Our vision is under Hören, under Sein, Welt offen denken und handeln, educating multilingual world citizens who hear others, see others, and think and act with an open mind. Our values are curiosity, kindness, challenge, and support, intercultural engagement, and community. We also read our land acknowledgement at every board meeting, which is we acknowledge and appreciate that TCGIS is located on Wakapute Dakota traditional, ancestral, and contemporary homeland near Lake Minnewaca, in the land now known as Minnesota Mapoche. Our presence here is linked to generations of Wakapute stewardship over their land, as well as to the historical and ongoing injustices of settler colonization that impact Indigenous people to the present day. We commit to understanding our role in this legacy and to educating ourselves and our community about Indigenous history through continued mindfulness and engagement in and outside the classroom. We'll start with our roll call.
Right. Director Albers.
Here.
Director Hyde.
Here.
Director Larson.
Here.
Director Lindner.
Here.
Director Miller.
Here.
Director Wright.
Here.
Director Smaka.
Here.
Director Tesfayesus.
Here.
Director Yemanayab.
Present.
Ex officio, and executive director, Elizabeth Timpfenig.
Here.
And Dean of Data and Compliance.
Yeah.
Asanoy here.
Awesome. We have a full house tonight. We have a quorum. So our first order of business tonight is to approve September's meeting minutes. And I'd make a motion to do so. Thank you, Director Yemaniab. Any changes to September's meeting minutes? Edits? All right. Hearing no discussion, the September meeting minutes are approved. Our next order of business is to approve tonight's agenda. So I'd make a motion to do so. Is there a second?
Second. Anna B.
Excellent. Any adjustments to tonight's agenda? All right, hearing no discussion, we will approve tonight's agenda as it appears in the board packet. That brings us to our open forum. And I do not think we have anyone signed up. Okay, Kevin's shaking his head. We will conclude our open forum for tonight. An opportunity for public comment. Which brings us to one of my favorite parts of our meeting, special recognition. I'm going to kick it over to Director Zenfeneg and Dean Noy to talk a little bit more about these slides. Mostly focused on our capstone exchange that concluded just prior to fall break. And by all the reports I've received was a pretty resounding success. So let you guys share a little bit more. Oh, and you're recognizing yourselves. Well,
Recognize ourselves now.
Well, I
worked really hard. But I'm proud of you. Yes.
Well, I will say thank you then to you guys, because I know how much work and time and effort it was to coordinate all the things. So thank you for bringing that experience to our students and for making it possible and coordinating a ton of logistics from housing to public transportation to field trips to how to accommodate all the students in the classrooms to getting calls about host families having trouble making connections to having a lot of fun along the way too. So to tie-dyeing, right? So thank you both for all of your hard work to bring this kind of
It's a total labor of love. You don't think that you have any left for anything extra because we all work pretty hard at the school already, but for something like that, there always just seems to be a little left in the tank.
excellent. And Claudia, I'll let you guys give an extra shout out to Claudia.
Yeah, she worked tirelessly, not only organizing the capstone program, but also doing so well teaching.
Mhm.
She worked really hard to put a wonderful program together for our students.
Awesome. Thank you all for your hard work on that. We also had a number of families who hosted events as part of that exchange, including the welcome picnic hosted by Chris Brosett and Monica Kamamua, the ice cream social hosted by Sarah Wilkinson, and as previously mentioned, the tie-dye experience hosted by Dr. Kat Sweeney. So if you guys have any
The
additional.
The amount of hours that Dr. Cat put into that, it's not a number that you hear and you would say that makes sense. It's, I mean, like 10. Like really labor intensive. Again, tie-dye is a labor of love for Dr. Cat. If you know her, she's really good at it. And she brought that experience. The kids do it with her in German and they learn about why tie-dye works and the chemicals that are involved in it. And it's actually an interactive lesson. It's not just a fun activity. So that you can see the kids in the picture before, they're all wearing their tie-dyed shirt.
Do they all wear it on the last day? Is that
They
kind
all
of
went on the last day, and that's the photo taken just hours before the first group had to head off to the airport.
how long were everyone's hands dyed? That's the true question.
I saw
They
Dr.
wore
Cat
gloves.
told them to wear gloves.
They wore
Oh, okay.
They wore gloves.
That was their own fault. I like it. Awesome.
We also had some families that helped organize the field trip. So Viva Quant worked really hard on the Twins game. There ended up being, I think, over 150 tickets purchased for that Twins game. TCU just took up a whole section. It was for this, the universe shine. It was German night,
Yeah.
like
How
during
cool.
the stay. It was amazing. Everyone got a hat. It was super fun. So thanks to Aviva for purchasing the tickets and distributing all that and organizing a really fun night. There's a name I know. My husband and he got to do some volunteering. He doesn't do anything. And so he and Rich Iwin, which is a name I know that the board recognizes, former board member, they happen to work at Wells Fargo. And so they organized for the kids to go, and in 2 groups went all up to the top of the building so that they could see. It's actually, that's a different Wells Fargo building. The one that Ben works at is across from US Bank Stadium. And so the view is the stadium and the grounds below, and it's a pretty cool day. So thanks to him. Jeff Bublitz and our partner Jake Richmond over at Central welcomed our partners and showed them around, showed them classes, gave them a really great tour of Central. We know that these kids come from smaller communities, so to go to Central is a real experience. And then John Steingraber and Liz Kestner, both U of M grads, led our friends around the campus before they left. And that is also said by our colleagues on the German side, an incredibly enjoyable experience. So thanks to them.
Awesome. Well, again, it takes a village to make these kind of things happen. So thank you to everybody who had a part in it. And thanks, of course, to all the host families who opened their homes as well to hosting our German exchange students. And it's exciting to think about the spring and our kids going over there. So
Yes.
to kind of complete the exchange. Our next item on the agenda is a review of our audit. And I just want to make sure that our guest presenters are good to go.
See Kelly's name.
See Kelly's name.
Ones too.
Yeah, can you guys hear me all right?
All right, and we have John as well. Excellent.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'll just check in.
Awesome. Thank you guys for being here tonight. on this. I'm sure this is a highlight of your job, logging on to meetings after your regular workday. So thanks for being here. I'm just gonna kick it off to you guys and let you introduce yourselves and your role and connection to TCGIS, and then you can jump into your presentation.
For sure. Would you like me to share my screen as well, or do you have the presentation on your end?
I have it here too.
Okay.
I think, yeah. Do you
Let
all
me see
have
if
it?
this will work too.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, perfect. Well, just to introduce myself, my name is John Stachel. I'm with the school's audit firm, Abdo. Been with the firm for 3 years now. I'll be presenting the fiscal year 2023 and 2024 financial statement audit. Before I begin, I'd like to extend a thank you to Kelly and then everyone at the school for helping us get to this point as well. And you guys are able to see my screen fine then? Okay.
Yep.
In this presentation, I'll be covering the audit results, so the opinion we issue on the financial statements, the general fund results, other governmental fund results, and also the key performance indicators for the school. And feel free to stop me at any point in this presentation with any questions as well. So to begin, we are required to issue an opinion on the financial statements and the related internal controls. In fiscal year 2024, we did issue an unmodified opinion, which is what the school is looking for. As a part of our audit, we do perform testing on certain Minnesota legal compliance statutes. And in our testing, we found no instances of noncompliance. This first graph that I'm presenting is the average daily membership, so the student enrollment in the past 5 years, so dating back to fiscal year 20. You'll note that in the past 5 years, ADM has remained relatively consistent, and enrollment did just drop slightly from fiscal year 23. Here we're presenting the general fund balances. So represented by the orange line, that top orange line, are the general fund expenditures for the past 5 years. And then also the gray line below is the general fund balance as a percentage of those general fund expenditures for each year. The general fund the general fund balance as a percentage of the expenditures has remained relatively consistent in the past 5 years and is also well above the school's fund balance policy of 20%. This is the general fund budget to actual. So you'll notice the furthest left column are the final budget amounts in the general fund. The final budget called for a net decrease of nearly $26,000 in the general fund, whereas actual activity increased fund balance by $6,000 in the general fund. The furthest right is where we show the variances from the final budget, so just the actual activity minus the final budget amounts. You'll note a significant overvariance in the expenditures. This is mainly just due to the recording of the new GASB 87 copier leases. And the flip side of that, in the other financing sources, you'll notice that lease issued, so lease proceeds, and that's just the opposite side of that entry to record the GASB 87 copier leases. But overall, like I mentioned, the general fund balance did increase by that $6,000. Here are the general fund revenues per ADM, so per students. We also compare this to statewide averages and then Region 11 charter schools, which are just the charter schools in the metro area. We compare it by state sources, federal sources, then local sources and others, so investment earnings, contributions, and donations. The school does fall under the averages for Region 11 and also statewide for state sources and federal sources, mainly due to just the makeup of their student population. On the flip side, we are presenting the general fund expenditures per ADM, so per students, and then we're also comparing that to state averages. This school does fall right, kind of right on that 25th percentile, you'll notice, and then also the statewide averages. And that also explains why the revenues are under the statewide averages and the Region 11 charter schools. And also following kind of the similar trends with the statewide averages that you'll align above. Here are the general fund operating expenditures by object code. And by object code, I mean salaries and wages, employee benefits, supplies, and purchase services. It's presented for the past 3 years. In the past 3 years, it's remained relatively comparable where those expenditures are allocated by object code. And if anything, you might notice a slight uptick from 23 in the purchase services from 20 to 24%. And that's mainly due to an increase in repair and maintenance expenditures, which fall under the object code of purchase services. Similar to what I just presented before, this is the budget to actual, but for the food service fund, so Fund O2. The final budget for the food service called for an increase of nearly $3,000 in the fund balance, whereas actual activity decreased fund balance by $15,000. To go over the variances, you'll notice that the revenues were under budget by $16,000, and that's mainly due to state sources being less than anticipated. And also expenditures were over budget by nearly $8,500. This is mainly due to the first year of the school serving breakfast, I believe, so salaries came in more than anticipated. All in all, fund balance decreased by the $15,000, like I mentioned, leaving fund balance at zero for the fiscal year 2024. Here are the food service expenditures per student, and we also compare it to the statewide averages for the past 4 years. The school is under the statewide averages and also following the similar trends of other charter schools in the state. This is the community service fund budget to actual. So the final budget amounts called for no increase in fund balance, and that's also reflected in the actual activity as well. There was a under variance in revenues for the community service compared to the final budget amounts. This is mainly due to the lower participation in the Kinder Club than anticipated. Then also expenditures were under budget as well, and this is due to personnel expenditures being less than anticipated. Overall, there was no change in fund balance in the community service in fiscal year 2024 as anticipated with the final budget. Here are the building company fund balance, or the building company fund balance, and the bonds compared to the lease revenue amounts for the next 10 years. The building company fund balance did increase by roughly $104,000. This is mainly due to revenue sources from rental income exceeding operational and debt service costs. And below is where we present the principal and interest payments on the Series 2013 and 2019 bonds for the next 10 years, then also compare it to the anticipated lease revenue, which would be represented by that gray line. One of the school's bond covenants related to the Series 2019 bond is to maintain a days cash on hand formula above 60 days. What that days cash on hand formula tells us is the number of days an entity can continue to cover operating expenses using its cash on hand without any additional influx of funds or revenue. These 71.8 days, as you'll note right here, is derived by the cash and investments divided by the operating expenditures, and then also we multiply that by 365 days. And like I mentioned, the school is in compliance with this debt covenant as it's above the 60-day requirement. Similar to what I presented in one of the earlier slides, this is the general fund balances as a percentage of expenditures again. But here we compare it to Region 11 and statewide averages. The school is above those averages, which is good, and then also following the similar trend lines the past 4 years. These are the school's elementary and secondary regular instruction, so the most significant amount of expenditures they have, and we also compare it per ADM and then to the statewide averages as well. The school is sitting right about that 25th percentile and also below the statewide averages for those expenditures per student. And this is just the special education expenditures per students, and then again comparing it to the statewide averages. The school falls roughly between that 25th and 50th percentile, and then they are below the statewide averages as well. That concludes my presentation, and this just is everyone who worked on the audit in the fiscal year 2024. I can open it up now for any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you for that presentation, John. Does anyone have questions about these figures?
Is this a requirement that we do this audit or do we,
Mhm.
okay, and we do it once every school year?
Once a year.
At the end of
Once
the next
every,
year.
okay.
Anything on your end, Treasurer?
No,
All right.
no. Oh,
All right. Well, pretty quiet group here tonight, but I'll take that as a very thorough explanation of the audit results. So
Well,
well
that's
done.
good. Thank you very
Um,
much. Yeah, thanks for having me on tonight.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah.
so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
thanks, John. Thanks, Kelly,
Okay.
also for being here.
For sure. Thanks, John.
Yep, thank you all. Thanks, Kelly. Have a great night.
You too.
Yeah.
Bye.
Alrighty. Excellent. That leads us to our executive director. Oh, sorry, we'll start with,
I think it's part
It's-
of that,
it's-
we can just, yeah.
we're gonna
put that
we're
in
gonna
there.
lump agenda items 6 and 7 together. So we'll let Director Zenvenig and Dean Noy take it from here.
Great. Okay, a couple of staffing updates to start with. Ren Milk, as we know, her last day was September 6th. She was replaced by Noah Brentlinger, whose first day was October 7th. He's been on the job now for a couple of weeks, filling in nicely. Thomas Vico's last day was the Friday before break. Happy to update that the offer was out and has now been accepted, and our new FIAD teacher, Tony Bachman, will be starting on Monday. He is coming to us from an international school experience in China for the last 5 years. He's originally from Montana. He's not a German speaker, but he will end up being a tier 4 licensed FIAD teacher with a ton of experience teaching littles in FIAD. And so he's going to be a good transition to the kids. Just have to shout out Hervico, wherever he is. The materials that he left for the new coming teacher are like none I've ever seen. We gave him the day to work and he just cranked out. We're in such good shape because of the care he took. He will be dearly missed. A couple of educational assistants. We have M, who started at the end of September, Celia, and transition, we lost Noah to teaching, but that's an okay transition. Enrollment update. We're still sitting at 562. No change there. Had me kind of wondering about some statistics from the years past and how many students we lose in the first couple weeks of school. So we dug in, I had Nicole do some data crunching, and on average from the beginning of the year to at the point where I made this presentation, we lose on an average 3 students. This year we lost 4. In the year of COVID, we lost 30. Good perspective. Normally, we don't have many students adding at this time either, so we are right on trend for that. And we did open the 2025, 2026 applications. And so far, I believe the number is up to 9 today. So school tours have started, morning and school options. I think we've had 2 so far, and we are well on our way. Staffing, recruitment, and outreach events from Paige. We've got the Twin Cities Book Fest that's coming up, and we've got a school tour, Dock and Paddle Trick or Treat. Paige will be up at Dock and Paddle on the 26th. She's still, I think, looking for a volunteer. And then she's got a busy weekend. She'll be at the Twin Cities Pride Trunk or Treat as well. And if you are wanting to help out, you can get in touch with Paige. October is a busy month.
And we also have our own trick or treat event on the 27th,
We
right?
sure do.
So-
Our PTO is doing our fourth annual, maybe. Fourth annual PTO event is on Sunday. I will be there. I'll be the Oompa Loompa. You wanna come? Spoiler alert. It felt appropriate for candy.
Reason enough to go, I think.
Yeah. Invite your prospective students.
I remember last year I wore it to the dance and no one knew what I was. They thought, I think the best one was, are you supposed to be a person at a rave?
Oh.
Why do you know what a rave is? Charter Connect, I think is the next slide here, Eberhard. There are new company, I think they've changed the name for Enrollio now, but and it's Packed Class, I believe. I think that is a good sign. I think they're really moving forward with that product. It's getting some momentum. We have seen our first Google ads and our first Instagram ads. And so we are excited to be rolling with them. Paige and Nicole worked really hard to transfer everything over, all of the from our socials, and to get working on the application. So kudos to them. They've done a lot of work. These are our key financial indicators. We've got cash on hand as 84, and as John just told us, our bond covenant is 60, so we are in good shape there. We are still budgeted at 585 as our approved budget. We know that our income is currently closer to 565, and we did actually have Kelly change that working budget, and so now we're working with 565. When she did that, you know, it's kind of like a roll the drums, cross your fingers, and it actually turned it. We're not sitting too. It's not too bad. Our debt service coverage ratio is at 1.11. Needs to be 1.0. So we're great there. That number of that DSCR is the cash flow versus what we are owing, what our debt obligations are. If you're wondering where that number comes from. Our fund balance is also above our 20% for our bond covenants, hovering around 26%, which is, if you saw in the audit, just slightly lower than our average is usually at the end of the year, which is more around 30. And that would be because of ground.
Just 1 point. Fund balance isn't a bond requirement, that's an internal requirement.
It's a policy requirement. Thank you. Great. Let's see. Council updates. Our student council elections were held, and we'll be announcing the election winner for student council. Parent council is working on their elections, and they're going to use those new delegates to create a fresh charter. I went out of order. Staff council, I believe, right, Director Hyde met for the first time. So the councils are up and running. Which is a little ahead of schedule. Usually student council doesn't meet until November. So we're getting the year going earlier. And that goal of all council meetings being held twice this year in second semester is looking attainable. That student council will be run mostly internally by Katrin Gilhoff, who did a great job with them last year. They were really influential in the playground project. She has them being little politicians. And then they'll also kind of work for Catherine Radicke and I as a student advisory council. So getting a little student voice in the things that we do.
Good question.
Yeah.
If we go back,
The
so-
financial indicators.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now the enrolled ADM is 562 instead.
The actual today is 562, correct?
I just don't know. So what happens to we had the state not given us per ADM amount, or do we send it back? How does it work?
The amount that is given to us is given monthly, and it's given by Esther Noy does the Mars attendance, and it gets calculated through that, which is why the ADM can fluctuate throughout the entire year, and at the end you get an average, basically an average of whatever it was the whole year, and then that's the money that then could be, like, we could get more, we could have to, yeah,
And then
That's what the holdback is
that's what the
for.
holdback is for.
Say it
So
again, I'm sorry.
there's a thing called holdback. They hold back a small percentage of our payments all year. So we, in theory, unless things change drastically, we wouldn't have owe them money, then they pay us at the beginning of the next year, which is why our days cash on hand jumped up from 48 to 84 in the last month. Because we got that payment.
Do we also budget with respect, so we take the holdback into consideration and,
I mean, it's built into the budget.
okay.
The holdback is in the percentage of fund balance that is dedicated towards the whole general fund.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions? Sorry, I should have asked. I should have stopped there. Okay. Moving on to academics, mostly we're going to talk about the MCAs, but there are just a couple of things that are exciting happening. Teacher support, the state has put their money where their mouth is on the READ Act and has issued or will soon issue 2 extra payments for READ Act finances. One is a one-time payout to teachers for administrators to use for READ Act training and in a form of a stipend. And the second was we received around $20,000 to use for curriculum, which we will use to basically back pay for them that arrived, anything that qualifies as literacy. So we're kind of looking at it as a $20,000 addition to our curriculum budget, which is great. Part of the reason that when we got our last financials, things were not as bad as we thought they might be. We have the potential, also says the state, of reducing the instructional hours by 5.5 hours for K-5 to cover the work that is needed. The READ Act we talked about has extensive training for this year for K-4 teachers, and next year our 5-8 teachers will be involved. And so we met with the union because we are a school that has a CBA. We needed these stipends and this one-time payout to be approved by our union so that we can do an MOU and get stipend letters and stipend checks out to our teachers. The union met yesterday in a meet and confer and approved the amount. Every teacher who's doing the READ Act training will be getting $725, which is a nice chunk of change to acknowledge that work that they're doing to advance literacy. Student support. Catherine Radke has done a really great job owning this SEL corner. This is a little screenshot of what the teachers are getting monthly. It's a monthly newsletter that has the focus for the year or for the month. For example, this one was for September, beginning of the year, building community, how to create relationships with kids. October is respect and bullying prevention. There's some tips, there's some links. It's guiding the SEL lessons that all the teachers are doing throughout the building. Another thing on SEL support is that we're working with some school-based therapy to explore the option of bringing a therapist into school. And so I'm meeting once again with Tara Marshall, who is a certified therapist, to talk about that possibility. This is something that large districts do. Normally smaller districts aren't able to, but we were sought out by this qualified therapist and she's gonna try to provide some services for our students covered by insurance.
Is that something that parents would opt into and then pay for, or how does that?
Parents would opt into it, and it would be similar to a school that has a clinic. If you have a cold, they can go to clinics, and then adult insurance covers that. And so it would save the ease of kids having to get pulled out for therapy. We have a couple of requests every now and then for kids to do online therapy, which is also really hard because you can't really have kids in rooms by themselves. It goes against our responsibility to students, but we want to be able to provide students with their therapy. So it's a nice combination of getting all those things done at once.
Is it then all happening after school? Because you said you don't want.
It could happen after school. Well, if I have an hour-long therapy appointment and my therapy is a half an hour away, now my therapy appointment takes 2 hours. If I can do it at school, it's going to take 45 minutes or an hour. So it's saving time. Kids would still probably be pulled out of class for it.
45 minutes.
Potentially. Because we do have kids that, leave to do things like that already.
Yeah, all these special services, speech therapy, occupational therapy, they get pulled out of regular classes already. Typically, the SPED team tries to do it during like homeroom, so not during regular instruction, but if it's not unavoidable, they will try to have the regular instruction, then pull them out after that.
Yeah. Yeah. So we talked about lunch being a good time before school, after school, advisory for middle school kids. Things like that. We haven't worked out all the details. Maybe I'll bring it to staff council.
Yeah, I'm just thinking because, yeah, we have pullouts, but normally it's like, 10 minutes. Or maximum maybe 15, but if a kid, we have 50 minutes lesson, he gets, because therapy should also be something that you have like every week, right?
Could be.
Yeah, something
Could be
like
once
that.
a month. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's 45 minutes, so of the whole hour, it's just
Yeah.
thinking how that
That's a
should
really
work.
good question.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I meet with her next week, I'll learn a little bit more about that.
It's absolutely great and definitely necessary, but I mean, we are a school, we have to deliver education, that's our job firsthand. Yeah, somehow should.
Always, as a parent of a special ed student, it's always a balance. Services that your student need to be a successful person and be successful at school versus, okay, let's drill the academics, right? So it's always a fine balance which area you invest, and there are, I would say, some sacrificial lambs, drama, that you can do as a parent to say, okay, we want to make sure they get all the basics right, but if student is not necessarily interested in these areas, it's okay if she misses that specific class. So
It prevents like half day pullouts of students that happen all the time for like doctor appointments and therapy appointments. And I think it sounds like a great idea as a parent.
so yeah, I think offering that is going to be huge, being able to offer that.
We also have a lot of families who are trying to get into therapy and can't. And this will kind of just be for us.
Evening appointments are hard to come by, really hard to come by.
And then probably it's even more important that we also have a strategy who is getting into that. We probably only have a certain amount that we can offer on sessions.
Yeah.
That we have a system like who is first to serve the kids like.
I'll ask about
Is there a process? So I also think it's a great idea. Is there, I just, one tiny thing I consider is how is this consultant screened or identified? Just, obviously, because it's kind of could be considered an opportunity for the consultant company as well.
Yeah, I thought about that. And so I did the background check and talked about that.
Okay.
Yeah. She's a certified licensed therapist with a pretty good background check and
I think
references and things like that.
absolutely. That one, yes. But also kind of would there be other competitors, and then how did we pick her?
She picked us. Dr. Carroll and I had talked last year about looking for someone, and it went on a list of things to do, and the list is long, and so she came to us, and that was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. She does it for a few other schools, and so she's got some experience. Keep the questions coming if you're noodling on that and you want to email me later. And let me know. It's new to us, and so
Would it be in person?
it would be in person. Yeah. Oh, there's Capstone again. We can keep going. I think we talked about that. This is Katrin Gilhoff in the middle of this picture. She was at the Utah Immersion Conference as well. And then this is a picture of all the St. Paul and Minnesota folks. Amy Young is not pictured, but she was there. The lady on the left is the lady that I work with Central, Megan. And then Naomi is the next one, who's the woman who did our world language proficiency certificate. So she works with the seal of biliteracy. Katrin, me, and then Lisa Showers is a St. Paul immersion, I don't know, specialist maybe, and she's actually going to do some PD for us at TCGIS, taking the READ Act and kind of transferring it and translating it for immersion teachers. So just a continued really solid partnership with the folks over at Central. Okay, Frau Noy.
Yeah. Let's talk MCAs.
Let's transition to MCAs. The MCAs, the data came a little bit on a different schedule this year, and it came later. Earlier.
It wasn't, it was the
just
same as
different.
it was same as it
It was
usually is.
embargoed though,
Yeah.
later. Never mind. Great. MCA data came. We've been looking at this for months now.
Mhm.
And we used it to make some decisions about the programs that we have in place this year already. So it feels, maybe that's what I'm talking about. It feels like this has already been out for a while, once we've been looking at it.
We do have the pleasure, like, I mean, it's nice because before the embargo was lifted, there's preliminary data that we can look at this year. As we have, there's going to be new versions of MCAs that are coming out. And we won't be able to get those immediate results as they go through their first year of implementation. So we have that early now, but we won't as early as we have the new MCAs.
Got it. Just a couple of reminders that the math and reading MCAs are taken each spring by the 3rd through 8th graders. Science MCAs are taken in Minnesota in 5th, 8th, and 11th grade, only those 3 grades. You can see when it comes to the graphs, Esther's going to describe the graphs.
You say math and reading are taken every year?
Math and reading are taken every year, 3rd through 8th grade.
Yeah. So if you look, the dark blue is math. The light green is reading and the middle blue is science. And we are strongest in reading. That's not super surprising as an immersion school. We'll talk more about that later. And our science is really strong, and we have made some gains in math that we want to talk about, but we still have work to do in math, which we will come to.
This particular chart is the one that you will find if you Google Twin Cities German Immersion School MCA scores. So this is the one that when I compare ourselves to Nova or to Yinghua that I see, and I actually just did that recently and noticed that there are many schools that are that have lost a percentage in 24 than they did in 23. So that dip that we took in math, we're not the only ones.
Quick question, Esther.
Mhm.
What do the numbers mean below the percentage? Is that the number of kids that passed?
That is the
50%?
percentage of kids who score proficient. So
Okay.
that would be either
Proficient
meets
and
or
above.
exceeds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then what is the state average for each of those?
We will show those
Okay.
details.
That's the next
yeah.
slide.
Yeah, exactly. If we kind of go into, we'll look closer at the different
Okay.
data sets here. So for our math MCAs overall, 3rd through 8th graders, 50.3% score proficient in last spring. If you look at the gray is the does not meet. So over the years, the amount of students who does not meet, I mean, do not meet, does not meet, is going down. You'll see that we have some work to do, especially in that partially meets spot. That's kind of what we're identifying. Overall, we're having more students improve in math. We're not quite there. And I'll show you the next slide that talks a little bit more about that, which is the North Star Academic Progress Report for math. So overall, a greater percentage of students at TCGIS are maintaining and improving their performance level relative to grade level expected proficiency. If you look at the state, all the way to the left, that's statewide. And that blue is the light blue. Thanks, MDE. The light blue is achievement level decreased or does not meet, so we want to have the dark blue and the green as much as possible. Those are improving and maintaining. And the state has 56% of students improving or maintaining relative to their grade, and we have 67. So our students appear to be learning, greater than what the state would average is.
As a reminder, we have 2 columns on ours because we are our own district.
Yeah, so if you were at a public district, you'd have the district and then the individual school. We're on there twice because of that. If you go ahead to the next slide.
All of these are both those last 2 slides. That's school-wide math scores.
Yes,
School-wide average.
yep. Exactly. Here's where we're going into grades. And this is where we can, start looking at what trends are we seeing? What do we need to do? And what we are seeing, so coming out of the pandemic, we had, if you look at 2021 5th grade, we had very low math scores. And we got a new German, we made a bunch of changes. And the scores improved, and we're still seeing, though, in 5th grade, a pattern of low performance that's concerning, and we have our eyes on 6th grade as well. So, looking at those 2, 5th and 6th grade, we're going to talk next about what we've already been doing, because we saw this preliminary data before it was unembargoed. So we were already, given opportunities to make some changes. If you look at our 3rd and 4th grade, you'll see a lot of growth. And so we want to continue to pursue the strategies that appear to be working. We did a 3rd, 4th grade mixed age differentiated math small groups last year. I think we can kind of see the benefit of that structure. And we'll talk more about that in the next slides. But if you want to see that, I can leave it a minute so you can take a look and compare the various grades.
Is this the chart that we can read diagonally?
No, I thought I would not put that in this year. I thought I would go with something a little more visual, but I have that
But
one.
like 2021 grade 3 would be 2022 grade 4, correct?
Yes.
So that's the same cohort.
Yeah, so if you follow it diagonal, it's not the other one where you can follow the color.
Yeah.
Sometimes I've shown
So you
that one
can still
instead.
read this diagonally. It's just
Yes.
you didn't make it easy for us.
You bring up a good point.
I struggle with that,
I thought I would try something a little different, but yes, and you bring a good point, up that sometimes you'll have a cohort that's particularly low. We had our eyes on that a little bit for 5th and 6th grade, but I think that, 5th grade is a huge transitional year for our students. They're coming up into the middle school, they're switching their language of instruction from math, from German to English. They're also then, everything that comes along with it, the way that math is represented in a more American way. We're needing to take a closer look at those grades, and we've already started a data deep dive, our last PD day in my task force is innovative education. We had a group of excited math enthusiasts doing a deep MCA data dive with me, with looking at 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade in the past 3 years, and taking every standard strand and really breaking it apart. So we've we're doing our homework on this, and it's happened enough times where we have to give it more scrutiny. Yeah.
So just because I happen to have a kid that was in 5th grade last year,
Yeah.
and I know that the previous year they did the differentiated strategies in 4th grade.
Mhm.
And I think that is another indicator of how effective that perhaps was.
Mhm.
So it's really interesting to see that big of a jump
Mhm.
in that 4th and 5th grade section. And I know you guys are doing that in 6th grade again.
That's where
for
the
that crew.
6th grade plan kind of came from.
Yeah.
We saw does not meet, partially meets, and we really looked at that partially meets. And gosh, if all these kids could, how do we do that? How can we target? So we kind of started with the partially meets and looked at that group and looked at what their scores were. And so many of them are within 1 or 2 points to being meets, and what is it gonna take to just push all those people up a few?
Mhm.
And so that's where we started with the sixth grade, and we came up with the 3 different classes. And 2 of them are mixing the partially meets with the does not meets, and then there was some self-selection and like other input from teachers and grades and things like that. You can't just use MCA scores.
Yeah.
Kids aren't just an MCA score.
Mhm.
And then that's where we're at right now, is using different curriculum for each of the 3 classes. One of those is taught by special ed teacher Kim Micklin, and it's co-taught. And the other is taught by Roxanne Cornell, who is a trained interventionist and is used to working with the kids who are partially meets and getting them to the next level. She had an MCA program last year where she was working particularly with partially meets kids. So she's really an expert in that. And then the kids who are already meeting are with Marin Flavel, who is an honor student herself. And so she really gets the mind of gifted, and she's stretching kids at the top. Pretty cool. It's hard to schedule.
Mhm.
Did you say, sorry, one more question. You said grade 3 did the differentiated math too last year?
Mhm. They did.
I mean, a 10-point jump is
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in that mix is the interventionists were part of that too, right? It
Mhm.
wasn't just the grade level teachers, but it was a really great mix of grade level teachers pairing with tier 1, pairing with tier 3, and creating some small group instruction.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Is the 50% score just an average of that 2024 bottom line, or how does that?
It takes the actual numbers of kids across the grade level, and then it takes it from there. So if this many students scored exceeds, it's taking instead of like averaging or something, it's just taking the numbers of students across.
Cause yeah, I was trying to back into that 50% number and I couldn't figure it out. But what I'm thinking is, as a parent, when looking for schools, that's the first thing you look at, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
What is the biggest drag on that number for us? What grade? Just thinking of year over year, how we can push that number up, right? Obviously, kids are individuals and I get all that.
Mhm.
But also when I think about our enrollment numbers, you think of that person looking for their kindergarten
Mhm.
that without knowing anything else, that's what
We
you look
totally
at.
get it.
We think it's fifth.
It's 5th grade.
It's fit,
And-
okay.
Mhm.
Which to the outside eye, nobody knows that's the grade where our kids start to do math and English.
Yeah,
Nobody knows that.
with doing math and English, and I'm not saying change it earlier in grades to get them used to it. You think that would help, or
But Yinghua does.
is that what they do? Okay.
That's what they do.
We have more increasingly over the years taken a more bilingual approach to math in the earlier grades, particularly in 3 and 4.
Okay.
And that has helped, but
We know the
still have work, like,
vocabulary
though-
is a big part of it.
you can push into a class and a student might, I've had it happen where students said, well, what does greater than mean? But if it were in German, so there's like a very real,
Right.
difference in being accustomed to the vocabulary, and that's why we have to take this, bilingual approach to math.
I can speak as a 5th grade math teacher too. This is, we've had our new math curriculum in the lower grades now for, is this the 2nd year? Or is this the 1st year?
Your curriculum or in K4? This is the 3rd year.
Mhm.
3rd year, okay. This is the first time that I've seen a lot of comfortability around vocab with my students.
Mhm.
And it's of course, to no fault of the other grade levels. Because they just maybe didn't have as much of that, they weren't as used to it, but this year I've noticed my 5th graders are very easily adjusting to the vocab piece, and they're actually surprising me quite a bit with how much they know. And how, even if it is just a vocab language barrier, they're like, oh, yeah, I know what an exponent is, I just didn't know it in my head, or I didn't know the division symbol. I mean, that's one of the other things too, that's not vocabulary based. They don't get the divide symbol where it's like a slash.
Yeah.
And it's just silly things like that sometimes where they just need that adjustment piece because just do things a smidge different, but I will say they seem very comfortable this year, so.
Yeah, we've really tried to hit that hard, that bilingual approach.
I just think it's interesting that they're more proficient in the target language than their native language. So
Kudos for that.
that is,
Yeah.
it's kind of a bright spot in, yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking that question too, if you translated the MCAs into German.
You know, I've asked, you know, they have a pop-up translator tool, and when we get together as a district, assessment coordinators, I've also asked, so when are you gonna add German?
Yeah, it'd be
Well, there's
interesting.
other language.
There's other languages, yes, there's Spanish, there's a whole list.
Interesting.
Some languages, they don't have a pop-up translation, but they have a glossary, and I mean, if you have to look up a translation in the glossary, you can guess how many kids do that. Mhm.
The next slide is getting to that point, is that we know that we're compared against certain other schools, and we're trying to attract a clientele. And these are the schools that our authorizer compares us to. Yinghua, we've dug in just to see what they do, and they are spending probably twice as much instructional minutes on math as we are. They use a program called Singapore Math, which is very Chinese culture focused. I mean, it's everything you think about Chinese schools teaching math is kind of encompassed in this product. And they are doing it both in Chinese and in English. So those are interesting things to talk about and learn from. Our dear friends over at Lila have some numbers that seem a little bit more familiar. And then the other two are on there because our scores are trickier because we're K-8. So they've picked a K-5 school and then a middle school for us to compare to. Both of those schools. The language focus is Spanish. And the MCA does come in Spanish. So I think that's interesting to note. Those are our comp schools.
Go to the next slide.
So the curiosities that academic team came up with are wondering when other language schools begin to teach math and English. What is their language allocation plan? I've been told by Dr. Amy Young that as far as the amount of target language we teach in, ours is the highest in the state. We use the most German as our L2 as other schools. Wondering about curriculum. We know that everyday math, which our 5th and 6th graders use, is not skewed to the Minnesota state standards because nothing is. So what are other schools doing? How much are they teaching to the test? I called former director Cleansing last week, and she said, yeah, we're totally teaching to the test. Our teachers put stuff into AI, it spits back out. We don't teach to the test, we teach to skill. We teach for kids to be able to do the math. There's also a technology piece that we're wondering about. We don't have Chromebooks in kids' hands all day long until 5th grade. And they're taking the MCAs in 3rd and 4th grade. And so there's a question there. St. Paul, every kid has an iPad. So they're used to just thinking about actually taking the test. They're not as used to it.
I can say that is something that really came up during our deep data dive is, just perhaps inserting some more practice where they would see what the math is on the screen and have to, on the paper, do the math and then report, just maybe every once in a while practicing that skill.
So that's where we landed on how do we answer some of these questions. I just came back from Nova Classical today and had a really great chat with Dr. Brett Wetland. Nova's scores are much more compared to Yinghua's than ours. English is the focus language there though. And she's not Dr. Karen Cleansing and I have talked about it too. So it's something we're gonna talk about. IXL is a software product that Marin Flavel uses, and it is kind of how could you explain IXL? It's not drill and kill, but it's drill based.
There's a lot that it can do, but what's really nice is that it maps a skill learning plan to Minnesota State standards specifically. And within like a learning path, you answer questions and there's a format to differentiate up or down. There's also then practice games that you can play that are based on your skill and performance. And so this is something that we're looking at piloting, just seeing if that can help our students out getting some of that experience. And then also it's built-in differentiation is a tool to meet kids where they're at.
Our tier 2 has used it, and so we're looking to bringing in tier 1. The contact that we have through IXL offered us a really great deal to be a pilot school. We're fully aware it's an introductory offer, but we also think that it might be the product that we are needing. And so we're happy to pilot it and try it out at a reduced price. And then we'll bring it to the curriculum advisory committee and we'll consider putting it into our budget if it's something that we need. It allows the 4th grade classroom teacher to not have to switch to English to teach math. The program can do that. There's a sample of it I can send out to if anybody wants to try it. It was fun.
Would that ever be something that kids would then have access to at home?
Yes, it would
Yes,
have
you
access to
log
that
in.
at home.
So you could assign it as like.
Correct.
Like
Is the MCA a timed test? Like are there students that don't
No.
actually finish all the answers? No.
Students can have as much time as they need.
Okay.
And you gave that example of like a piece of paper. Do kids can they figure stuff out? Okay.
Yep, we give them all a piece of paper and a pencil. There's like specific guidance about what kind of paper you can give them.
Of course.
That's fine.
I mean, when we have enough graph paper, it's great to give them graph paper, but sometimes they just get printer white,
Oh,
you know, but.
Right. Heaven forbid we make it easier on them.
Is there a thought about, so anecdotal, but from my kids, I've heard, oh, it's not serious, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't count. Is that something that the kids come up on their own or?
We always try to tell them.
It to them, so it's not all pressure, but at the same time, it does count for something.
We encourage them to take it seriously. It does make a difference and we do tell them that. But I mean, you know.
Yeah.
I'm sure other schools experience that too.
Oh, yes. How do we handle it? Well, I was saying at the committee of the whole, about 4 years ago, science included the MCA as part of their final grade. So if students passed the MCA, they didn't have to take the final exam. And their scores went way up.
Really?
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
And now English is just starting this year, I think, or last year.
We need to
Yeah.
introduce a 5th grade final exam. So.
Because I heard the same thing from my own children, that it doesn't
Yeah.
count for anything.
Wow.
They just
Yeah.
go through.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes. Interventions that we already have in place are some things that we talked about already. So the 6th grade new structure for challenge and support. Aligning our teacher efforts. So our Q comp goals this year and for the next following 2 school years will be around math. Switching from 3 years of reading to 3 years of math. And those goals you can see there to increase MCA math scores by 2.7%. We've doubled down on some data. Having the 3 task forces has been really helpful. We've got some isolation, some people that are really into digging into the strands, specifically the 3rd and 4th grade. And then we just previously mentioned the IXL. Interventions in the future, we're going to evaluate that 6th grade model and see with some success criteria and consider expanding it. We are going to look to finding a new universal screening tool because our A1 math scores always show a very different story. And so there's something there that's not connecting. So that would be, Esther's going to work on that. We're also going to, for the first time, have a data retreat in June where we're looking at the data with a leadership team, teacher leadership, academic leadership, and having a whole group do what Esther and I did for math for 6th grade, bringing that to a larger audience. We know there's a lot of good ideas and people who want to help. We're going to have to take a look at curriculum and see if our curriculum is part of the problem. And then let's see, task forces and consider expanding IXL to all the grades next year, or to 3 through 8 next year.
Okay, so I just wanted to share the AMath results because so AMath are aligned to Common Core standards, whereas the MCAs are aligned to Minnesota State standards. But this has been our temperature check to see how our students doing in math. And you can see, generally speaking, the I don't love how they frame the results, college pathway, low risk, some risk, and high risk, but looking at what the benchmarks are. It would seem that we were doing well in math. It would be unexpected for us to have a low MCA performance looking at what these benchmarks are and what these reports are showing us.
Which is interesting because MCAs are also college proficiency assessments. The same thing, they just use different terms where the exceeds would be college. Meets and exceeds are college passing.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly where the percentiles break down, but if you go to the next one, it'll be like norm to different percentiles. So this is a national percentiles, how they are performing relative to the nation. So if you look at this, I kind of synthesized it in the bottom left because I find the graphics at Fastbridge and spits out are a little bit hard to understand. But on the bottom left, I have the spring of those years. And we have 88%, 88%, 89%, 90%. And that's how many students that we have performing within the 30th and 99th percentile nationally, which would also be an indicator that our math is fine. Perhaps it's a little bit of a mismatch between which standards are in our curriculum and what the Minnesota standards are. That's probably also playing a role here. So I just wanted to pull in some more math data to help understand from a few sides what is going on with math. All right, reading.
So I don't have as much to say about reading.
So yeah, reading MCA 68.5 proficient in the spring. And again, we see the percentage of students who do not meet going down over time, which is, part of what we would like to see. And we continue, if you go to the next slide, we continue to make great gains in reading. The state 61% of students are improving or maintaining achievement relative to grade. And at TCGIS, it's 80% of students are improving or maintaining achievement relative to grade. So that's a lot of growth to be proud of. Go to the next. Yep. And this is how we compare to our comp schools. Just a moment to look. So one thing that's kind of interesting, we'll talk about this more in the next slide, but when you're in an immersion setting, in immersion learning, you expect to have a temporary lag in the development of literacy and for students to be caught up around 5 or 6. So when you look across at that comp school, you could see that those percentages starting out pretty low and getting higher. Our scores reflect this as well. And this is just expected immersion education literacy development. Okay. Science. So science is a little bit wonky because we're in between standards. Excited for our new science MCA.
Although those will be wonky for at least a year.
They will be a little bit wonky too, but 63 proficient in spring 2024. And again, we see that does not meet going down. So that's, one of the indicators that we look at for, how are we doing our job? Of course, we'd like to get more of them above into that meets, but this is also progress. And just, a reminder that MCAs for science are going to be a little wonky.
It's also a completely different test, so we will stop using the data eventually to compare it to other years because it would be like apples to oranges.
Do you expect the test to be more aligned with how and what we teach or less aligned to what?
It will
Science
be,
test.
It'll be a little bit wonky as we implement.
It's just because our kids have had a certain set of standards for so many years, and they've switched over to different standards, some of which are the same and some of which are in different years. And so if you're in 8th grade and you're taking the MCAs, and if you're in 5th grade and you're taking the MCAs, And the topic is solar system, but they moved that to sixth grade, and so you haven't had, or you missed
Okay, so,
gaps and things like that. It's just the or MDE has a whole thing on their website about making sure that stakeholders understand that that will be weird for a little while.
How long does it typically take to kind of
Level it out.
Level it
I
out.
got to say about 2 years.
Okay. Any other questions?
Should say we'll be going down that road with others subjects soon. The year after. So
What's
we'll
the year
have
after
brand new
that?
MCAs for everything.
ELA, English language arts standards
Mhm.
after that, and the READ Act will change things for sure, so. Yeah, job security for those folks at FEE.
And Pearson? No.
Thank you, Esther, for always helping me with understanding the charts and the data.
Thank you guys for that. That was a really awesome presentation.
thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate all your hard work.
Thank you, Esther.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
Excellent. Anything else on your?
That's actually the end of my report.
All right, well, we are ahead of schedule. So I will ask, do you guys want to take a recess now? Or keep going?
Might as well recess.
Recess?
Yeah.
All right.
Go to 8
Huh?
till 8.
Yeah, let's recess for 15 minutes and we will resume at 8 o'clock. All right, it is 8:01 and we will call our meeting back to order. The next item on our agenda is the review of the fall board retreat. Twice a year, the board holds a half-day retreat to kind of do a deep dive into some larger projects that we don't always have time to discuss during committee of the whole or at our public board meetings. This fall's retreat will be taking place this Saturday, so we're going to be spending lots of time together. But just wanted to share the agenda with the community so everyone knows what we'll be covering at that retreat during our time together. So just to run through it quickly, we usually spend some time just gathering and catching up with one another just on a personal level. Do some kind of icebreaker that usually results in some kind of funny stories among the group. We're also going to be spending some time on Saturday morning talking about enrollment and retention strategies, and have a number of discussion prompts that we're going to be just kind of brainstorming and talking about as a team. We'll have a break for lunch, and then the big part of our afternoon will be spent planning the plan for the next strategic plan of the school. Our milestones currently go through school year 25-26. They were revised due to the pandemic. Our current strategic plan was set to sunset in 2025, but because of the delays in progress due to COVID, the board has spent the past year or so updating some of those milestones and moving them out a year. So that plan was revised and approved last year with those updated milestones. So we'll spend some time, like I said, planning the plan and talking about process, team, and kind of the nitty gritty of what the next strategic plan should look like, how we're going to engage folks in our community or external partners in helping us to create a meaningful plan for our school as we look to the next 3 to 5 years. The other thing that we'll be talking about towards the end of the day is just succession planning for the board. Hopefully clarifying some roles and looking at just the expectations of the board and how we can make this a reasonable time commitment for our community and encourage others to join in this body, as it is a critical part of our community, and we want folks to feel like it's a reasonable commitment and also a meaningful one for them to spend their time. So if anyone has anything else to add or any additions that they would like to add to the agenda, we will be meeting at the Roseville Public Library. Abner's graciously agreed to bring a projector so that we don't all have to be looking at our screens all day. Because I'm not totally sure that the room that we booked has one, so. Anything anyone would like to add or additions, clarifications? All right.
Just a heads up that public library is an early voting site and it is packed. It's the most packed place in the Twin Cities. They were saying on NPR today, so parking might be a pain.
So get there early, friends.
Yeah. And to the shorty one, it took me 2 hours
Wow.
to vote.
Okay.
Can I get there early and vote?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a
good idea. Yeah.
Maybe on our lunch hour, we can all take our sandwiches.
You live in Ramsey?
Yeah, I have to live in Ramsey, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to formally approve this, but
No, thanks for putting this together. This looks very, very good.
you're welcome.
I'm excited.
I'm really excited too.
It's always a productive time. So, yeah, it's good to spend that time having some more in-depth conversation because sometimes it gets rushed during normal meeting times. Excellent. That brings us to our committee reports. And I think based on the agenda, fundraising is up first. So Lindsay.
We had a really good meeting this month. We talked in depth about the fall campaign, which will align with Give to the Max Day, so second week of November, I believe. Kind of going through what we did in the past and the things we can add to it. So just this week, yesterday maybe, the family letter went out. Kind of talking about where all their giving goes to, and then we will send out an appeals letter closer to the week of giving. We talked about putting a number on the letter for families about how much per kid we need or per family we need, because there are some families out there who want to give kind of a donation, here's my check for the year type of thing. So talking about including that potentially. And then the coin drive is going to happen again. We're going to add QR codes to the coin drive bags so that it can be linked to our donation page for parents or whoever sees it. And then we also talked about some new opportunities, Raise Craze, which Kristen brought to the table. Thinking we're going to do that in spring, which is students pledging to do acts of kindness for age appropriate things, and they essentially get sponsored. And it sounds super fun and aligns with our school's mission. The idea of a craft fair came out, which I think is brilliant because it kind of aligns with the whole Vine Oxmark thing, utilizing our space in the gym, potentially a flashing or a carnival. And so, yeah, ideas are flowing.
I will make one minor correction to the minutes. The 85,000.
Oh yeah, I saw that too.
Yep, there is a separate line item for busing. I think that's an additional 45,000. So in total, it's 110, but the annual fund goal is correct at 85. One other small fundraising update is that we did actually end up also submitting a grant request to the Hall Foundation based in Georgia. Katrin Gilhoff found the opportunity and reached out to this foundation in Georgia, who typically only funds organizations based in Georgia, but they were interested in our intern program, so they kind of waived their requirements that we be based in Georgia and let us submit an application. So we did submit a $10,000 request to that foundation, and we're just waiting to see if they award us those funds. So awesome, thank you. Finance, Director Hyde.
We met on the 7th. And most of what we talked about for financial status was covered in the director's report. Thank you for always being so thorough, Elizabeth. We also had an update on us switching banks. That is currently sitting with is it our lawyer? No, it's the bond counsel lawyer.
Craigens?
Yeah, I don't know. So that's where it's sitting right now. Got a couple last pieces of paperwork that we need to get filled out.
I did
for,
submit the bank application yesterday.
yep.
That was the last thing.
To have everything in a row to actually get the switch process physically moving. Yeah, we have to get approval from our the bondholders to change some of the documents because the old bank is listed on them. So once we get that updated, we'll be able to steam ahead. We reviewed the finance committee charter. I don't know if I told Kevin, I doesn't look like I did.
It's in the board
But we have an
packet if
action
you-
item to approve our, what's that?
Oh, it's in the board packet if you want
It's
it
on
to
your
be.
C.
Committee of the whole minutes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so we need to approve our charter. It is ready and in the board packet. And we moved the November meeting because it was on election day. So are we approving the charters later?
We'll improve it later.
Okay.
Excellent.
That's it.
Do you want to give a brief update on, I know it's campus planning. I keep thinking it's part of finance, but it's not.
I was there. But
You want to give a,
you can give it.
you guys take
Yeah,
it?
campus planning met in person last night.
Okay.
A couple of us were there. We did a walkthrough and took some notes and talked about the things that are in progress. We gave some updates on what the design projects will hopefully produce. We have 2 estimates for that. We'll probably be diving more into that. And we spent a lot of time playing on the playground.
So as we're thinking about how do we get people into being on the board or something, there's a good reason. I got to take a video of myself going down the slide and tease my daughter by saying I got to do it before her.
That was a good
Those are the,
person to
yeah,
go down this.
those are the type of opportunities you get.
That doesn't steal the deal. I don't know what.
Speaking of steel, we did talk about repairing the roof for additional 3 to 5 years. Segue. And Andy reached out today, and I think it's Les Jones is the company that will come. He got a reduction of $100 down to 9,000. So that should buy us a couple more years on our roof.
And they're gonna get that done
They're gonna get it done before the snow.
before snow.
dies.
Nice. Yeah.
And while they're up there, they will take a core sample and then give us a proper roof estimate.
And take down all the balls, right?
Correct.
I would recommend if you've never been on the roof, ask Andy. He let me go up there.
Mhm.
We were supposed to go on the roof, but it was dark already.
Yeah, we do it about every other year, I think, the campus planning or facilities meeting, we'll go up there.
I go.
Yeah.
Do you also want to just touch base on what the design elements are that mostly focus on the atrium?
The latest estimate from Christine Frisk approaches the design project in a number of phases, and the first phase would be the atrium. The greatest thing about her proposal is that it would be very similar to the branding project that was done, where it would create basically a design brand, and then we would get to chunk it out in phases and approach it as we are financially able. But eventually, at the end of maybe a 5-year period, there would be wayfinding that matches signage, that matches logos and offices. And I think we have a really great chronological order here. The branding project needed to happen first. Now we get to look at the design project. I'm actually really excited about it. I was at Nova today. I took some good pictures of their signs.
And this is one of the ways that we would be bringing German immersion into the halls and walls of our school, making it a welcoming, professional place that would also then really help families feel like, yes, this is absolutely the type of place that I want to send my child. So it has an enrollment tie, it has a strategic alignment to our school physical structure reflecting our mission. So it's bigger than just making spaces look pretty. But that's also an important part of upkeep of our building.
We also talked about getting a sign on the building.
Yeah.
It's because unless you're walking in from the playground, you don't even know what this is so kind of paired with the playground structure into making this a fully finished, presentable space.
Mhm.
FYI, I was at Nova today and their sign is only viewable as you it's exactly how I was picturing it. It's just like that. So
Like driving into the parking lot.
it's just like how I want it, where you can only see it if you're kind of like standing in front of it. Yeah. I thought that was really funny.
Awesome. Thank you, Director Hyde. Committee of the Whole, we met just prior to fall break. Again, a lot of prep work for tonight's meeting, but also reviewed kind of the outcomes of our parent orientation night, which thanks to the Parent Council for hosting that. Some good takeaways and opportunities moving forward for that event. Also kind of ran through some just upcoming community events and ways to be involved, including the board's 2 items in the PTO's auction. So that's exciting. We also looked through our finances and just talking about making sure that we have a working budget that we all were in alignment with, prepping for the audit review, and then receiving the update on the READ Act that we heard tonight, and doing some pre-planning for fundraising campaign in November. And like I said, tonight's meeting as well as the board retreat. So. Emily, governance.
We met Monday, so it was kind of a tight timeline this month. But it was a productive meeting. We have so many things to get through. And we'll start talking non-com this next month. So anybody listening or in this room who would like to be a part of the nomination committee for succession planning purposes, all ears. We need 1 parent, 1 staff, 1 board member at least. So obviously the more hands on deck, or just even like if you don't want to be a part of the committee, just saying, hey, I would really like to nominate this person. You'll see things in the run brief, but you can also, of course, email anybody that you think would be a great person to add to the board as we come up on election season. Right now, general elections in the United States, our board elections 6 months away, but still rapidly approaching. Otherwise, there are 3 policies up for approval tonight. So I would make a motion to approve policy 512, which is the school-sponsored student publications and activities. It's new. 601, which is charter school curriculum and instructional goals. This is not a new policy. And then 621, which is the literacy and the READ Act, and that is new.
I'll second.
Discussion.
Just a few pointers. 512, which is the first one in journalism, is kind of its nickname at the moment. This is completely new, so you won't see any like highlights or anything on there, just because we've never had it before and there's no changes that we've had on this policy. So the whole thing is new. This is basically to address students' rights to freedom of speech and freedom of the press, and yet also balancing the school's role as a supervisor in there, which is all in the purpose. So that is the main gist of that one.
This one of the new ones required by the state.
Yes.
We'll say that it's a model policy given by Max, and one of the questions asked at the Max conference all this Tuesday or last Tuesday someone said, how good are those model policies, basically? Like, is anyone, changing those? And the Max people said that they basically take theirs from MESPA. They're all fact-checked, state statute, they're sanctioned, so they're really good to go. So we should be able to rely very heavily on them.
Yes, and because this is something that Max has given us and that they vetted as well, it's very minimal changing. It's mostly just who do we want to be in charge of this? Is it the executive director or their designee? So it's had some good discussion on it, but really we're also trying just with the volume of things that are coming through in the legislative sessions is to not bog ourselves down in changing things when we've not ever had a policy in this manner, and instead to say, okay, let's try it for the year. If we run into something, obviously we want to be proactive, but also just given the amount of time that this takes, it's impossible for the committee to otherwise do some of it. And so to take what has been vetted for us, as Elizabeth mentioned, is a good sign. And so, if we need to make some tweaks, I am proposing that we also keep these on a 1-year basis just for this upcoming year. So next year might be a little bit of a heavy year again, but if we're realizing, hey, maybe we needed to just amend or adjust something a little bit, we've had some time to sit with it before doing some of that. Jumping to 601. That one, again, is not new. That is a typical policy that we've had for a very long time. And trying to get to my notes on it, but the majority of this policy has stayed the same. There have been ongoing questions in the last bits about how this policy works with the other policies in the same series. But there's really been no substantial changes. Lori Hartman did note a few changes from MISBA, and those are reflected in that policy.
Are those the ones in brown?
Yeah, I tried to change it because the commenting is comments don't show up the way that actually editing policies, and this has been an ongoing issue for governance for a long time. And so everything that's crossed out, like Every Student Succeeds Act, is now crossed out because we have the READ Act. Things like that are crossed out, those are things that were in the former policy that will not be in the current new policy. And then things that are highlighted yellow will be added to it. And I think I got all of it, but I think I may have missed a paragraph. But I have the comments, it's helpful to see them. They're there. And then the last one from this month is, again, the READ Act. Literacy in the READ Act policy. This is something that's, again, required. We're taking this template, we're rolling with it. There's a lot of definitions in this one, but also good, because if you're not aware of the different components that make up literacy, helpful.
It is actually updated with the financials too, so
Yeah.
the literacy aid.
We really didn't do a whole lot to this. This was handed to us on a silver platter.
We have a question, the money we spend to Max.
Yeah.
It is worth their weight in policies.
Yeah.
Because the MESPA ones are for traditional schools, and the Max vet things with the charter school statutes, which are sometimes different.
Yes. And we double check those statutes, by the way.
Excellent. Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor of approving policies 512, 601, and 621 as they appear in the board packet, please say aye. Yay?
Aye.
See, I did it. What is it? Yeah, yay, nay, yay.
I hope not.
Can be whatever
Not
you
nay.
want.
All right, what's my official wording? All those in favor of approving policies 512, 601, 621, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. All right, policies are approved. Motion passed. Thank you guys for your work on that. That's a lot of detail work.
Still shout out to Lori, because. And thank you to Jens and Ed and Director Zane Bennig and Frau Radke, I think she's online. Y'all have been so helpful. So much.
Maybe we should change it to Yar and Nars to keep up with the kids.
Totally.
I suppose you get that all day. Nar.
I write it on their things when they forget to do their work. I'll be like, Arnar, you forgot the backside. Anyways, I digress.
The last committee update that we have is executive committee, and we actually did not meet in October because of schedules. And I just realized we met very
Not as official.
not officially, but just to check in about
Okay.
the board.
I just wanted
Yeah.
to make sure I wasn't like losing.
No, we did not officially. We had one 20-minute call. I just realized that I did miss the action of approving the final committee charters for finance, mission alignment, and fundraising. So just want to go back to agenda item C in this, I guess 10C under committee of the whole. So we'll start with finance. Richard, anything in particular?
Didn't do a ton of updating, except Jens, I was hoping you would look at how I wrote out the members section. Just to have a second set of eyes. I did that after the meeting. Like we talked about. Otherwise so I updated the members section just to make it just read wonky, and it was hard to determine who actually was required to be on there. Especially from the admin standpoint, so I just kind of reworded it. Didn't change anything except for removed the facilities manager from being required for the finance and facilities committee, because campus planning is more of a focus for Andy, and he's not needed at all finance committees. However, we will extend an invite when necessary. Then updated the members. Otherwise, just touched up a couple wordings with everything, with the duties, and updated the strategic goals based off of our strategic goals for this year instead of last year.
And you got my name wrong.
I got your name wrong?
Yeah.
You forgot the N after the D.
Did.
All right.
That's all right. We can fix it.
All right, let's keep going with the charters, and we'll just approve them all in one motion. So mission alignment, Anna?
Well, I didn't really change anything about the members. I mean, I still have not really 100% sureness who will participate. I have written down some names. What I did was I put an advertisement for the new committee coming in today's Rundbrief. That's in, so to spark interest in general. And I also emailed potential members that I would like to invite. But of course, anyone can join. Besides this, I didn't change anything in the charter. And Richard, I know you said something last time that something is missing, and I wrote an email to Kirsten about it because I was not sure what it was.
I think it was the
She said
members.
actually that you probably just meant the members are not there,
Yep.
right? Just the members?
Yep.
Okay, so what do we do? Should I just put all of the members out because it's not sure yet who's in?
So the part that I was actually concerned about is the composition of the board. mission alignment committee. So you have that now.
Uh-huh.
So it's membership of the mission alignment. Yeah, that
Okay.
part. As far as the members go, ours is, the finance is wrong too, because
Oh, okay, so then just.
like, we don't know who our parent council liaison is yet, so I just left the old ones for now. So you're fine to do it.
Yeah, I think the
That's it.
mission composition, to Richard's point, I think.
Okay, that was fine.
Yeah.
Good, then I think we're also good to go.
Right. Lindsay, you want to check fundraising?
We basically just kind of cleaned up some of the wording. We changed the goal to our current goal of $85,000. The specific goals, we kind of honed in on some things and took things out such as capstone. Yeah. So it's pretty much the same as last year.
Right. Any other discussion about any of the charters or corrections?
Corrected Jens's name.
Great. All right, I will then make a motion to approve the committee charters for finance, mission alignment, and fundraising for school year 24-25.
Seconded.
Thank you. All right. Hearing no earlier discussion, all those in favor of approving the missions as they appear, or the committee charters as they appear in the board packet, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. All right, motion passes. All charters are approved. Excellent. Next item on the agenda is liaison updates. I know we heard a brief update earlier, but anything to add from parent liaison?
I didn't go to the night, but I don't know if others that were there maybe want to share. I was traveling for work, unfortunately.
Yeah, Director Hyde and I were both there. It was a good turnout, relatively light turnout. But I do think the idea of the orientation night is a good one that everyone is hoping to build upon. I know Director Zampenig and Emily Rolls Johnson had some good conversations about perhaps the school taking over kind of the execution of the event in partnership with parent council, just because it's hard to organize an event in a facility that you're using from afar, for lack of a better way to describe it. So just continuing to collaborate on that event, but being able to kind of execute in a little bit more seamless way. So, and then also maybe gearing it more towards newer or younger families. Just because once you've been here, a lot of that information is pretty familiar, but if we can target our younger families, maybe that would create a little bit more, I don't know, excitement or attendance around the event. So
Yeah.
I think those are two takeaways.
Yeah, there's also a really strong gearing towards volunteering, getting parents to volunteer. So I think next year, we talked about, it would also be beneficial if all the committee chairs would come to it to kind of be available if there are any questions or something about specific committees.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a good event to have, and we'll just continue to kind of grow it and make it a little stronger each year. But yeah, big thanks to the parent council for getting that rolling and for the idea behind it of kind of helping folks understand our school.
I was a little disappointed because the two new parents that I sat down and talked to, I got all excited to introduce Elizabeth to them. She already knew him, of course. So good job, I guess. Yeah.
That's great. Any updates from staff council or?
No, I haven't heard. If last update was that we needed one more, they needed one more representative. I have not heard if that position has been filled or not yet. So hopefully we will know by the next meeting, which should be in November.
Great. Administrative liaison, Director Zanfenig and I, and sometimes Director Hyde meet weekly. Have good conversations just to kind of problem solve, brainstorm together. But just kind of our normal weekly check-ins. Do you have any updates?
Not yet.
Academic updates?
Curriculum Advisory Committee is about to get off the ground. I know Esther sent out emails to those that were a part of the committee last year, so if you were, you should have received that, and you've been either asked to stay on, or if you'd like to roll off, just say that, and we'll try and find others. SEAC has not met recently. They'll meet, I believe, again next month. And Wellness Committee is not meeting yet, but I need to send an email about a few of our wellness policies to get, but we're also waiting on some feedback from the Student Council, which, as you heard from Director Zanfenig, we just got our Student Council up and running, so don't want to bombard them with wellness policy quite yet, but I'm sure they'd love to see it. So depending on how those things go, the wellness subcommittee might need to meet to discuss what the students are reporting back on and rebut a little bit, depending. We'll see. The federal, the WellSat that we did last year is very strict in how they want things to be worded and what's allowed and what's not, and vending machines and things of that nature. So I don't know that will vibe with what our children are interested in.
Vending machine today.
Yeah, well, of course.
When's they coming?
How much could we add to the bottom line revenue?
We put Takis in it.
Why not? Staff lounge.
Great.
Oh, that's what we should do. Get a vending machine put in the staff lounge and tell the kids they can't use it.
Hey, there's one in the school.
All right, well, I'll like can take on that.
Face of 7-8.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you can make a little money like, oh yeah, give me an extra $1. I'll get in there and get you your tacky.
On the side.
See what I can do for you.
Excellent. All right. We're nearing the end of our agenda. Any new business? Like an efficient group tonight. Excellent. Well, hearing no new business, our next meeting will be on the 20th of, I believe, 21st of November, and we actually will have Danielle Miller from University of St. Thomas, our authorizer, joining us to observe that meeting. I'd also like to remind the board that she is coming for her authorizer visit on the 4th of November. I'm hoping to get a more robust schedule from her, but please just maybe make a note in your calendar because we will have to have some board representatives meet with her to as part of our authorizer visit. So
During the day.
it's usually toward the end of the school day. But we can reach out. Elizabeth, have you received a schedule yet from her?
I have not.
Okay, so we'll be in touch. Yeah. So, all right. Then this meeting is officially adjourned at 8:38.